Hi, I'm Suzy Shepherd, and I'd love to share part of my story with you. 12 years ago, I lived in a little brick house on a corner. My days were filled with my three little boys, 9, almost 4, and a new baby, and with teaching kindergarten just a couple of blocks behind my house. The weekends brought dinner with friends and walking to church on for Sunday services and lots of family time. My husband was in ministry at the church across from us, and the big glass window in our living room looked out to the steeple, and the beautiful sunsets and sunrises from both of the windows just provided a really beautiful setting. It was almost idyllic. But on one July night, that idyllic world really imploded. Without any warning, I became a single mom. And over the next few months, layer by layer, I picked up a new title, and that was divorced. I faced the challenge of really rewriting the whole script of my life. No one plans for the stuff, like it just knocks you off your feet and takes your breath away. One day, soon after that, I just needed time to think and to pray and seek God for answers. And so I thought, well, I'll leave my older 2 children with my mom and dad and take my little one in his snoozing in his car seat out to a little pond nearby, and just to think and pray and consider, okay, well, now what? I took my lawn chair that we toted around with us for soccer games, and I put it on the grass, and it teetered, and I sat down in it with my Bible while my baby was in the air-conditioned car. And I just opened it up wondering, okay, well, what's really next? And I think in this story retelling of Joseph, and just imagine what it was like for him one day when he found himself going from wearing the robes that his father had given him to them being stripped away, from feeling special and safe and secure and loved and known, to finding himself at the bottom of a well. He'd been thrown there by someone that he trusted. And man, I could so relate to Joseph in this story and in the unfolding that I was experiencing in these moments. And I just prayed in that lawn chair. I thought of where do I turn? And I went to Psalm 23. And the very first verses of that says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And I thought, there are a lot of things that I really want in this moment. And it felt like there were a whole lot of things that I needed. And yet in that moment, I really felt like God said, "Do you trust me?" And it was all I could do to just kind of shrug it off and, yes, I do. And the margin of Psalm 23 was Philippians 4:19, and Philippians 4:19 says, "My God shall supply all your needs according to his riches and glory." And I felt like God said again, "Do you trust me?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And about that time, my car died, and it was so hot, Texas hot, late July, early August kind of season. And I got up from my chair to go check on the baby and make sure that he was okay and to see what had happened. And when I got there, I realized that I had run out of gas and I had no money, no wallet. I scrambled for anything and realized I didn't have it. I'd brought my Bible and my baby and nothing else that day. And so at this point, I really just had to laugh, and I threw out a prayer and I said, "God, if there ever was a place to show me that you can provide, this is definitely it." And I turned around and saw that while I had been in the midst of all of this chaos, a little red truck had pulled up. We were in the middle of nowhere, and yet this little truck had pulled up. And I walked over to the gentleman in the truck and explained what had happened. And he kindly went out to get gas, and he came back to fill up my tank. And I knew in that moment that God was teaching me that he really did mean what he said, that he would provide, and that I really did lack nothing. I wonder what Joseph thought when he was at the bottom of the well. Maybe he screamed until he couldn't scream anymore. He knew he couldn't trust his brothers, and that his dad had no idea where he was and wasn't close enough to be able to save or help him. And I wonder, are you wondering where God is? Are you sitting alone, remembering God's promises, but you don't understand what it is that you're experiencing in this moment? I imagine Joseph knew. When we look at the story of Joseph's life, we see that it was full of God's favor, and yet he often found himself an outsider. He was just a dreamer to his brothers, an immigrant to the Egyptians, a royal to the shepherding family. He didn't fit anywhere he went. But God was with Joseph when no one else seemed to be. God brought him through isolation into leading a nation. He worked with Joseph to provide for his family and all of Egypt. Eventually, God restored Joseph's relationship with those who ditched him. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, Joseph would later say of his brother's actions, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good." Even when people are absent, God is near. He is not waiting on you to do something special for him to show up. He loves you right where you are, and he's already there with you in your situation. That day by the pond was a landmark in my personal life. It showed me that God was direct, he was personal, he was faithful, and I realized that in his presence, there really is nothing to fear. God is provider, friend, father, sometimes husband, and some days God sends a red pickup truck to remind you of all of that. So I invite you to just take a moment and reflect. What do you think you need from God in your current circumstance? What has God provided to meet your needs that you may not have expected? And I invite you to imagine, picture a time in your life when you felt all alone. How did that loneliness feel? When you picture that time, where do you see God turning up?